I'm definitely by no means an expert. So I've been in the pagan community about 5 years now. I see familiar faces, which brings me comfort, and it's exciting to meet new people. Alfred?
Howdy, my name is Alfred. My pronouns are he, they. So thank you very, very, very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Good morning. This is the first one, super early in the morning. We're so happy you came. I've been in the pagan community since about 2017. I've had a long journey. Let's see, my personal stake in this is I'm disabled, and I'm mentally ill, and I'm non-binary. So, so I've experienced what it's like not to be included. So this is why I want to make it inclusive, or keep the pagan community inclusive and make it more inclusive where we can make it more inclusive.
Okay. So to open up, we are by no means experts. This is just research that we did because we thought that it's important to have conversations around this. So at the end we will have a question and answer. We probably won't have the answers, but discussion helps us. So we are recording. At the end we'll ask if you consent to being recorded, if you have questions and discussion, and if anyone doesn't, then we'll just turn it off.
Right. Yeah, and this will be on YouTube, unless something gets really messed up. Within the next few days, I'll stick it on my channel, OneEyedHeathen, and then I'll give Mystic South the link so people can, find it. And I had lavalier mics, but then I got an iPhone, and they weren't Bluetooth mics, so so hopefully the quality of the sound will be acceptable.
Okay. You want to turn on the recording?
It is. Yeah, we've been recording for a minute or two.
So, creating inclusivity means being welcome to all people. It starts with being conscious of our filters and biases because that influences how we interact in situations. So you have to be open to being self-aware, hearing directly how our actions can be ableist or insensitive. We have to be open to criticism. It happens. We are people. We don't know everything. So in order to create inclusivity, we have to question what's been in place up to this point. That means sitting in the discomfort of dismantling systems. Some of the leading components, according to Heather.com, are self-awareness, courage, vulnerability, curiosity, empathy, and then I just added in respect differences because everyone brings something to the table that you personally may not know, and that's what helps us build better communities.
Okay, so we have some suggestions for actionable practices, and I will go ahead and warn you in advance. Much of this presentation is going to come off like just reading a list, and so I hope we don't bore you too much, but talk is cheap. This is actionable stuff. So inclusivity starts at the top. The clergy and board, if existent, need to be open-minded and approachable. For example, be receptive to your community when they bring information to you, and we'll talk about opening channels to that. But if people don't feel comfortable coming to you about something, say like sexual assault or something, then people aren't going to come to you, and you're not going to even be able to root out the problems in your community. If you don't establish it, start at the top, then people are going to follow your example. Okay, so 2, let's see. Have a group that actively prevents othering. This means avoiding forcing members into categories or pushing certain ways of behavior or thinking. Example, avoid assigning roles based on gender or gender presentation. Take volunteers based on their commitment to the role and not how it's ordinarily presented. As pagans, many times when we do ritual, many traditions have positions that are ordinarily occupied by men, ordinarily occupied by women. you know, as this example illustrates. And so that is just one place where we can't say, well, this is just kind of the way it's done, right? So let's see, so this role belongs to this kind of person, right? Or you're from this ethnic group, you need to practice, you must be from this particular path, right? You know, we can't make assumptions like that. Okay, let's see. Okay, create a group that does not default to the majority knows best or the majority sets the standards. Now, again, that's kind of self-explanatory, but yeah, again, we we get into habits, and a lot of our forebears or trailblazers trying to reconstruct old pagan traditions, and sure, we admire them, but we have to recognize that we get to change these things where we see they need improving. Okay, have surveys. I apologize.
You're fine.
Thank you. Have surveys, conversations, chats, make all channels of communication open for the people to be heard. Example, use SurveyMonkey as a platform to express how an event went or express opportunities for improvement. So one suggestion I'd like to make that we didn't necessarily think of until, well, this morning, have a channel for people to come to you anonymously. But yeah, I mean, we're in the age of email, meetup groups, text messaging, Facebook Messenger. I mean, the avenues are there. Please leave them open. Okay. Have a zero tolerance policy for bullying or harassing behavior. Example, clear and concise rules on how to handle these behaviors. Be prepared to turn people away when they show belligerent behavior. Yeah, be ready to ask people to leave. And yeah, definitely have like, you know, rules set up. When this happens, this is what we do, and then follow through. Because you don't want to end up with a he said, she said situation, and you're like, what do we do? That's constantly look for opportunities for improvement. I kind of think that's, yeah. Avoid compliance culture. Having bare minimums doesn't serve anyone but the majority. Before I go to the example, compliance culture, that is when people set up guidelines or obey the laws because it's required, it gets people off their back. And as opposed to, say, being compliant to the ADA because you care about disabled people, and then you're actually taking extra steps to make sure things are accessible.
Letter of the law versus spirit.
Sorry?
Letter of the law versus the spirit of the law.
Yep, that's a very good way of saying it. Thank you. Let's see. So an example of that is I went to a transgender support group at a church. The church, very LGBTQ positive. It was ADA compliant to the hilt. It had everything set up. However, the meeting was upstairs. So if there was a person who couldn't get upstairs, well, couldn't come to the meeting. So, I mean, obviously, you know, if there was a person who needed the meeting downstairs, we would have moved it. Don't get me wrong. That's an example, though, of well-meaning people that something just kind of slipped all our minds. We weren't really thinking about, hey, let's set this up to be as accessible as we can. Right? So, let's see. Make it known that your community organization strives for full inclusivity. Example, at Pagan Pride, include in your brochures that you welcome everyone regardless of sexual orientation, gender, ability status, ethnicities, races, etc. So, yeah, so this is something, I mean, be out loud and proud with it, because like, as an example, if somebody's looking at your brochure and saying, well, why are you getting political? I mean, if you answer your question, it's because in this political climate, it's very important not just to not exclude people, but to make a point of saying, you're safe here, to make a point of including people. And then if they still get aggravated with you, you know who you don't need to invite. So, and also people who are wondering if they're going to be included, they already, if you're out loud about it, if you have like, as one example, a bunch of pride flags up at your pride booth, people know, cool, they're safe there. There's no, how do I navigate this discussion, drop subtleness. People aren't gonna have to do that. Okay, see, inclusivity is not synonymous with using politics to be disruptive. So, some people are, I mean, inclusivity by its very nature is political. That said, some people have it in their heads that if you're making a point of being inclusive, you're bringing your politics into everything. And obviously this is not a license for people to suddenly interrupt ritual with like, okay, let's sing a song about solidarity or something. Obviously we're not doing this to be disruptive, we're doing things to make things better. So let's see. Send out a ritual script or summary beforehand to help others and new attendees be comfortable. So a lot of groups are informal, they don't necessarily think about a script. People who are neurodivergent or people with anxiety, for example, really benefit from knowing what in the world to do. And I can speak for myself. If I have a script, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen, barring any weird unforeseen circumstances. I'm okay, I know what to do, I know where I'm supposed to be, I know what's going to happen, you know? So,
another thing about posting it, our group posts script in our Facebook group prior to ritual.
Mm-hmm.
We do this for a couple of reasons, partly what you're suggesting there, but also for people who are visually impaired or people who are hearing impaired. If they're visually impaired, they can print it out in large print.
Mm-hmm.
For people who are hearing impaired, having a script means that they know what's going on.
Right, and thank you for mentioning that, because I will attempt to put closed captioning on our video. So thank you for reminding me. And yes, you make a good point. You make two good points about the visually and hearing impaired. Because too, another thing to consider with computers, you can increase the size of the font to whatever you want, and you can have your e-reader read it out to you 20 times, so you can memorize it if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so mental health and disabilities, like sometimes you know people have them, sometimes you don't. That's their business, not really yours. But the great thing about inclusivity is that regardless, you have the avenue to make everyone feel welcome and to make them feel safe. So default to kindness. Don't make assumptions. Don't be a dick. just be nice. When choosing activities and locations, ensure they're handicap accessible. We've had so many things that you find out afterwards where someone's like, yeah, I really wanted to participate, but like maybe it was in a backyard and they couldn't get to it because not everyone has like handy like ramps or anything that's accessible to help them with maneuverability. There are sensory issues, like there you have visual impairment. So just being mindful of setting up things to help in those situations. Consider how your members may react to activities. They might have triggers. They might have, the ritual itself might have sensory triggers, like flashing lights. They cause seizures. They can be super discombobulating.
Certain sense.
Exactly. Be receptive to the needs of your community. Like, if you don't have a disability, sometimes you're less aware of things that could help you improve those. So being aware and being like, hey, I noticed that y'all didn't include this. Is this something we can incorporate later in further rituals or either in the rest of the evening? It helps. Make it a safe space. So The term safe space, according to Wikipedia, yes, I know Wikipedia is awful and not always reliable, refers
Basic
to
definition.
places, refers to places intended to be free of bias, conflict, criticism, or potentially threatening actions, ideas, or conversations. I think something that everyone wants in a community is being able to be in that community without feeling like they're going to be targeted, like, oh my gosh, I'm being a burden, I'm being a hindrance. And that's kind of things that you want to take into consideration.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so, and just expanding on the safe space, if somebody says safe space, please don't worry, don't think it's a place where you can't tell jokes or something. It's a place where you're considerate of other people's emotions and kind, and where you're accommodating to people where needed. Okay, so consent. Real basic definition of consent. Permission for something to happen or agreement to do something. Okay, really important, informed, enthusiastic consent. Informed, obviously, people know what they're consenting to and know the ramifications. Enthusiastic, if somebody's like, I don't know, you don't know if they're hesitating because they haven't had lunch, or you don't know if they're hesitating because they think they're gonna get bashed in the head. And I know that's a crass way of putting it, but if somebody's hesitating, there's a problem. Now, so, okay, an example. So, let's see, yeah, I'm sorry, thank you very much.
It's okay.
An immunocompromised person may not want to partake of a shared drinking vessel, or if using an alcoholic drink could, using an alcoholic drink could exclude an alcoholic from participating. So you can do things like have individual cups. You can, an alternative could be kissing the horn. You could have a non-alcoholic drink like non-alcoholic beer or apple juice or whatever.
People are allergic to juices even.
Yeah, yeah.
Spring water is about the only thing that's absolutely safe.
Yeah.
Because there are even people who are allergic to tap water because of the additives.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for adding that. Spring water is apparently the only universal catch-all, because yes, people are allergic to fruit juices as well. And I said non-alcoholic beer. Well, some people are allergic to gluten. So, yeah, so it's really important with consent that people know what they're doing, and to make sure, again, going back to being open so you can make accommodations so people are comfortable consenting. They really want to be there and do what they're doing. Okay, asking if it is okay, ask if it's okay to hug, touch, kiss, as in like passing the kiss, tap, sprinkle, etc. before doing it. So one option is to have hand signals. Okay, let me collect my thoughts. So there was an example where I was in a circle. I didn't know we were going to pass the kiss, and here I am in a circle. I don't like touching strangers or strangers touching me, and everyone's kissing. Well, it wasn't like everyone. It was like if I were to kiss Bev and Bev were to kiss one of you. It's passing a kiss. And I'm over here like feeling like, well, now I gotta get kissed and kiss somebody else. And the person running the ritual isn't a bad person. But it was just kind of not everyone's gonna be comfortable. So you could have alternatives to that, like passing a hug. Not comfortable with a hug, touching someone's shoulder or squeezing hands. Not comfortable with touch, maybe passing something like a hand motion, like hand on a heart and extending it out without necessarily touching. I mean, we can adjust, and there are alternatives, and there are ways of giving consent. Hand signals, like across the chest, arms by your side. What was it we did, Bev?
We were talking about in bloats, and Joseph could talk to this better because it's been forever since we've been in a bloat.
Thanks, 2020.
But in bloats, you get sprinkled with mead or whatever the liquid of choice is in that situation. But some people, you get splashed, or you just want to be tapped with it. And so we had a hand gesture so when our wonderful clergy came around, you knew what to do. If you wanted meat in the face or not, pretty much.
Maybe when you put it that way.
Right, it's going on YouTube, y'all.
But, yeah.
Editing is the thing.
Yes. Not my skills, but we got it.
Yep, we got it. So, provide procedure in bylaws for reporting violations of one's person and or personal space and or sense of human dignity, etc. I'm going to say it's extremely important to have procedures written out in advance, so when something does happen, it can be taken care of immediately, discreetly, and people involved can be protected. I've seen what happens when there's not a procedure in place. Please put a procedure in place. Let's see. Do not assume someone needs help, i.e. standing or navigating a space. Ask before touching. Okay, so I'm visually impaired. Lots of well-meaning people have grabbed me by the wrist and led me places I don't want to be. It's perfectly fine. And it's not gonna get your head bitten off if you say, would you like help? Do you need me to pick that up? You need me to hold something? Are you okay? Need me to hold the door? You know, it's like, what can I do to help? It's okay to ask. Please ask. Don't just go in and try and just assume somebody needs help.
And don't touch somebody's mobility device without permission.
Or pet
Ever.
the assistance dog. Thank you, yes, don't touch mobility devices, and don't just go over and pet assistance dogs without asking permission. I can't tell you how many people have walked into a theater with an assistance dog and they get swarmed by a bunch of people wanting to pet the dog. And they're just trying to get to their movie or something. Let's see, do not assume, here we are. Do not assume gender identities. Again, let's normalize asking about pronouns. All you gotta do, you can state your pronouns, and you can ask other people what the pronouns are. And it's okay if you mess up. Just, it's like messing up names, you know. If you mess up somebody's name, you correct yourself. You know, pronouns are okay, I promise. The world doesn't explode.
Speaking of, they now have pronoun stickers up at the registration desk.
Oh, good.
Cool.
Good.
Oh, see, they didn't tell me that, so.
I think, looking at everybody, I think maybe they just got them in overnight.
Right, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, that's really cool, so I'm gonna go ahead and get one, cause it helps to normalize being LGBTQ, you know what I mean?
Just a note, as a older person, some of us have been canalized in the pronouns, so it's something that we have to think a little bit harder about than a younger person who's had that culture around them for their lives. You know, when we come from a culture where you had distinct roles of male and female, you have to actively think about that, and sometimes it's easy to slip into the old way of thinking.
The program.
Right.
Yeah, so it'd be one on our side, on the older side, yeah, we need to work on it, but on the younger side, you need to acknowledge we're working against something that, like, I'm 68, I've been like that for 68 years, so I'm working
Right.
against it.
Right, and then somebody introduces themselves and they have a xeno pronoun, it's like, oh, well, you know, you've gone from good morning to bonjour, what do you? No, I mean, I get it, and I agree, there's lots of people, I understand that, why they're upset, but there's I've seen a few people who do kind of have a knee-jerk reaction with pronouns, and you're right. I mean, older generations need some time. It's kind of like, I know that, you know, the children, I know that the Zoomers and beyond the Zoomers, they're gonna have stuff that I don't understand, and I'm gonna have to, you know, be trundling along behind them trying to learn. Okay, do not, okay. I'm finding it. Learn about closed practices to avoid cultural appropriation. Closed practices that not everyone is invited to, where you have to be initiated into the practice and accepted into the practice. So, not being a part of any closed practices, I don't have a whole lot to say outside of be careful, because we don't want to colonize, essentially. We don't want to take a practice that we did not have a hand in forging and influencing and building and taking the work and the time and the risk to actually build and contribute to that practice, take it, make it into something else, and then give it back and say, this is what you were doing. Absolutely not. That's extremely disrespectful. So, talk, like, if you're interested in a closed practice, talk to somebody who's part of that practice. Ask questions. Where can I go to learn? What parts aren't closed? What is familiar? This or that speaks to me. Is there a different idea or different version of it that's, you know,
Okay to use.
Exactly, okay to use. Thank you. Let's see. So, okay. Don't share others' personal information or stories without consent. Not your story if it's not your story to share, please just don't. Let's see. Practice consent exercises where everyone practices answering no. This helps build comfort in saying no in various scenarios. Okay. Many of us in our society are taught not to say no and not to maintain our boundaries. We are often taught that it is belligerent, it is rude, it's insulting, it's something people don't like, and we're often taught to take people saying no as people being negative, disagreeable, standoffish. That's not the case. So what we need to do, a good idea, is to practice. In one way of practicing, one game, so to speak, is have sit across from somebody else and ask them a question. Whatever the question, the answer is no. And then they ask you a question, and whatever their question, the answer is no, and go back and forth. And you learn saying no isn't the end of the world. You don't suddenly lose everything, nothing blows up, and you learn hearing no. It's not the end of the world. You're fine. It's not personal. Okay, so, conclusion.
So, essentially, we just want to incorporate things that make everyone feel welcome. And we want to be open to people saying, hey, what you did wasn't okay. Having conversations and just normalizing, hey, these are things that you could do better. These are things that you could do worse. Like, just so you're just aware. Because awareness brings a lot of empowerment and it helps a lot of people. With that, is everyone okay with the question and answer section being recorded, or does anyone not like that? Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Any questions? Any conversation topics?
So what
Things we could do better.
hang on, what I think we should do is when someone asks a question, because of the audio quality, I think we should try and repeat the question back.
Okay, we can do that. So, questions, conversation topics, things that we didn't think to consider that you think are super important.
I have one. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
One person raised hand, okay.
I was just wondering, has anyone been to a ritual where you felt like you were left out for any particular reason, and you have a suggestion of what you wish you had seen or had available?
Yeah. I remember my very first ritual that I went to, it was super awkward. didn't know what to expect. And I walked up, I had made like fresh baked bread, and I'm just like, I made bread. Like that was like how I opened it, and I didn't know like what is this paganism craziness? But you're right, and like I didn't have anyone to talk to afterwards. But I did meet some people during the group who were open to having conversations with me and being like, oh, I could point you in the right direction. I can give you this information. But it's important to be welcoming to new people and to give them an avenue. I know you had a question. Oh, you want to go first?
Oh, it's just a comment. I'm one of the coordinators for Nashville Pagan Pride Day. Here's the other one. And one of the things that, well, thank you. One of the things we've noticed is that sometimes you're going to get somebody coming to the event that is there to cause trouble.
Yes.
And it's important to notice which ones are like that, and then to shuffle them to the side and say, okay, you're gonna cause trouble, you can't come in. Because disrupting the event, disrupting a ritual, if that's the intention, then they don't really need to be there.
That's right.
So it's one thing to be aware of. When, inclusive and welcoming is really good, but you gotta look for the little,
Do you have
The
things that give
trolls.
it away?
The Nance.
well, at an event like Pagan Pride Day, we have people in the crowd watching and listening. And if we see somebody getting really belligerent, and the one we run into the most are the people coming to convert us back to Christianity. And we run into those, we pull them aside and say, that's not appropriate here, we'd like you to stop. And if they don't stop, we actually have security provided by the park where we're in that are police, and can actually arrest them if they get too belligerent.
Oh, good.
And we appreciate that. So basically what you do is send people into the crowd, kind of moles if you will, and you listen and look and watch out for people, and then come back to the leadership and say, you need to ask this person or that person to leave.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great idea, thank you.
A suggestion that I had that a number of ADF groups do, including ours, is it's called a pre-ritual briefing. And we provide it in writing as well as verbally, that encompasses things like turn off your phones, be respectful, consent culture, don't touch somebody without asking, don't touch people's things without asking, be a grown-up. Stuff like that, and it also gives a brief rundown what to expect, what do we do. We don't close circles, which really freaks some people out. And things like that, and it's just a way, because all of our rituals are open to the public, it's a way to let people know what's going on so that they do know what to expect. And that stuff is posted prior to the ritual. It's in our Facebook group. It's posted in the invitation to the ritual so that the information is out there first.
Yep, that's a very good suggestion. And again, to repeat for the camera, you were suggesting not just having the pre-written script and posting it ahead of time on Facebook, but also a pre-ritual briefing, so you can have some ground rules like turning off phones, but also so people, if they just showed up out of the blue, they know a little bit about what to expect. So thank you for that.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay.
All right. Well, I can say, so I sent a message to the people from Heathens Against Hate and asked if they were okay if I wore this shirt, and they did request that I say I'm not here in representing Heathens Against Hate. Good organization though, and that's why I wore the shirt. They fight the Nazi problem in heathenry. So, I mean, let's bust up on some Nazis, huh?
Well, thank you all for coming to our workshop. I hope we didn't bore you too badly. I know that.
Thank you for those intakes.
We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
We really do appreciate all of you.
Thank